And if you do have to leave, please just gently close the door.
How you doing?
How are you?
Great.
How is this room different than the last one, can I ask?
This is just TV people.
Okay.
Same questions.
After 15 years, I just thought I'd ask that question.
Okay, if we can get the doors closed in the front and the back. And again, please do not leave during the press conference. Okay, if you'll raise your hand, we'll get you a microphone. We'll start right up front.
Hey, Nick. Rick Carley, Fox 6. Have you decided on the punishment of Cam? Has he completed everything that you have asked of him? And will Cam Robinson start the first game of the season?
Well, I think that, first of all, the information that we received, obviously what the prosecutor did in deciding not to charge these two young men, we had a set of internal things that these guys had to do, police ride around, community service for domestic delinquent groups who they could actually help as a role model. If these guys continue to finish these things, and the fact that they weren't charged with anything, and I don't think the facts that we received sort of match up to what was released. Based on all that information, if these guys complete these things, this will be handled internally, and we'll decide at a later date whether it's necessary to suspend them. But if they do the things they're supposed to do internally, that they will be able to play in the first game.
Tom Menino, WVTM 13 in Birmingham. You always talk about accountability, and you want to have guys hold each other accountable. When it comes to off-the-field incidents of this nature, how much would you like your players to kind of, because they came in here and said they talked about how they're family and they want to help each other out, how much can you ask your players realistically to maybe support guys who might have some trouble off the field, and maybe in any way?
Look, on our team, you know, I think our players respect each other. I think they trust each other. I think to have 130 guys, 125 guys that are all college age, adolescents, who do a pretty good job, I think, overall, in terms of their behavior. They graduate at a higher rate than the normal students at the University of Alabama. We have had very, very few problems. Now, are we perfect? Are these guys perfect? I don't know, but for those of you out there that have children, are your children perfect? I mean, I had two children, and I'm proud of them, and I love them. Did they always do everything exactly right? But they learned, and they grew, and they became better people because of what they did. And I think that the kind of respect and trust that we've been able to sort of develop on our team, I don't think there's any question about the fact that everybody understands the responsibility that they have to represent themselves, their family, the institution, the program, and there's an expectation for the standard and level of that. But I also think when we have failings that we know we're less than perfect, and I think we're always going to be very supportive of trying to help the players. To think that the only way to help players is suspend them for games, I think is a punitive attitude that may not be correct.
Coach, Ben Baby with the, right here. Ben Baby with the Dallas Morning News. What made Trevor Knight so effective against y'all a couple years ago, and what do you think he adds to A&M's offense?
Am I going deaf, or I can't understand?
Can you hear me? Coach?
Yeah.
Ben Baby with the Dallas Morning News. What made Trevor Knight so effective against y'all a couple years ago, and what do you think he adds to A&M's offense?
Trevor Knight.
What he adds to A&M's offense. Trevor Knight a couple years ago when we played them, and what he adds to A&M's offense this year, transferring in there.
Oh, I got you. You know, we thought he was an outstanding player. He did a great job in the game that he played against us in the Sugar Bowl. Very athletic, was very accurate throwing the ball. So, I think he'll make a significant impact, at A&M, and I'd certainly be that'll be a real challenge for us to be able to contain, because he's sort of a dual threat guy that has been an effective player and has experience.
Right here to your left.
Wes Steiner with AL.com. Your team obviously is riding a 2-game winning streak into this year's Iron Bowl. What are you expecting from Gus Malzahn and that team coming off a 7-6 season? And then, if you had any advice for that team playing Clemson right off the bat, what would it be?
Well, first of all, what happened the last 2 years, what happened last year at Auburn, what their record was last year, what our record was last year, who's won the last 2 games, will have absolutely no effect on the game that we play when the Iron Bowl comes in November. Absolutely none. All right, so they're going to have a good team. They have good players. Gus is a good coach. He does a great job with their offense. Kevin Steele will do a really good job with their defense. They've got good front people. This is a team that I expect to be a very, very challenging team. Any advice that I would give them about Clemson? Clemson is a very talented team with a great quarterback who probably is the most significant player in impacting the game that we played since Cam Newton. So this guy can run, he can throw, he can scramble, he can extend plays. He's very accurate as a passer. They're very well coached, and I don't really know who all they have coming back and all that kind of stuff, so I can't give you that scouting report, but I know they've got some significant players that you've got to be able to manage in the game if you're going to have a chance to be successful against them.
Back here in the front row of the camera.
Coach, back to your right here. Can you hear me okay? You mentioned the lack of charges against Cam and Hootie as one of your reasons for treating that the way you have. The district attorney in that case said that one of the reasons, in fact, he said the main reason that he wasn't charging them was because they had spent their teenage years working and sweating. Does that sound like justice?
Well, I don't think that's all there is to it. So I think you have to look at the whole picture. I'm not going to discuss the case with you here. But based on the information that we got and based on what they did wrong, I think the prosecutor made the decision on the whole body of work based on what was done there and what the laws are. And that's not my choice, and that's not my decision to make. I'm also making this decision based on the history of the kind of people those players have been in our program and the things that they've done to change their behavior relative to our program. So that's basically what we're going to do.
Back over here to the.
Hey, Coach. Mark Whiteman, W8, right here. WAT in Knoxville. Tennessee was the only team to hold y'all under 21 points last year. I'm curious what the challenges that defense presented to you in that game and just your thoughts on them being favorites in the SEC East going into the season.
Well, I don't think there's any question that Tennessee is going to have an outstanding team this year. They've got a lot of really good players coming back. It starts with the quarterback who's, played fantastic for them. They finished the year strong last year. It was certainly one of the most challenging games that we had, both sides of the ball, and our ability to score points against their defense that played very well against us, and their ability to move the ball on us and control the football some in the game, as well as, make some big plays. So we see this as one of the most challenging games that we're going to have on both sides of the ball, and certainly feel like Tennessee is going to be one of the best teams in our league.
Right back here.
Hey, Coach. Joe Whalen, WBMA TV in Birmingham. This will be the third straight year you guys have a new starting quarterback. What have you learned about how you evaluate this position the last few years and how you determine what's most important for that position?
Well, I think what's most important for the position hasn't really changed. The guy's got to be able to execute the offense. He's got to win over his teammates because of his ability to play with some consistency and make plays inside the offense and show a knowledge and experience in that is going to lead to some consistency in performance. Most of the time, judgment, decision-making, leadership, some of these intangible things are very, very important in terms of the guy winning the team over, which I think is important because the teammates need to have confidence in the guy. So these are some of the same characteristics that we've always looked at, that we'll continue to look at. But I do think that it's not something that you can force in terms of making a guy be that without earning that from his teammates.
Up front to the left.
Hey, Coach, right here, Seth Austin, ABC 3340. I was wondering if you'd be in favor of a universal punishment policy across the SEC or across the NCAA, where if your players know they do X, they get a certain punishment. If they do something else, they'll get another one. That way, it's already in their head to maybe change their behavior before they go out and make a bad decision.
Well, we have a lot of educational programs. I've talked about before, peer intervention programs to educate players on the consequences of good and bad behavior. So we've taken a lot of steps to do that. I'm not sure that you have to have some national rule that says this is the punishment. For example, we have an NCAA rule. If you have a positive marijuana test by the NCAA, you're suspended for 6 games or half the season the next year. It's not necessarily exactly the same as our internal policy, which is more geared toward helping players solve the problem and be able to be drug-free in terms of their pursuit of an education and the football career. So that punishment is clearly defined, but how does it affect what players do and the choices they make every day? Now, the education program that we put them through probably has a greater effect, and that's what we try to do in all areas, whether it's, we talked about domestic violence already today, we've talked about guns, we've talked about agents, we've talked about drugs and alcohol. So all these behavioral issues that are challenges for college student athletes are things that we try to create an educational program that will help them understand the consequences of good and bad behavior so they can have better foresight in making decisions.
Going right here.
Hey, Nick. John Talty of AL.com. I wanted to ask you for an update on the incoming recruiting class and just whether all those guys are on campus and taking classes, and if not, what are some of the hurdles that still need to be dealt with to kind of get everybody on board and ready for fall camp?
I'm pleased with the progress that the guys that are there are making. I think that we made an announcement about the guy that did not qualify, so he's obviously not there. And other than that, there's nothing to report.
Right here to your left, front row.
Taylor Tannenbaum, WHNT in Huntsville. A couple of years ago on the 60 Minutes special, we saw you all over Eddie Jackson as a freshman. Heading into his senior season. How have you seen him grow over the years, especially moving to safety, and are you still on him just as much a couple of years later?
Well, I'm really, not on anybody unless they need it. And I think as players mature, gain a knowledge and experience, they gain an understanding of what it takes to compete at our level on national television, in big games, on big stages. And sometimes when you're young, you don't understand the mental intensity, the preparation that it takes to be able to be on that stage and perform at a high level. And I think as guys gain knowledge and experience, they realize that and respect it. So they have a better respect for paying attention in meetings. They have a better respect for having the kind of practice habits that are going to carry over into the games. In some cases, these things need to be taught. But I think in all cases, it benefits the player. And what I find is when a guy gets older, I don't need to get on him. I don't need to, I ask our freshmen when they come in, they all sit in the room just like you are. I said, I want you to put your hand up if I have to dog cuss you to get you to do the right thing. Well, nobody puts their hand up. So I said, then I never have to raise my voice. No one's ever going to make a mistake. Everybody's going to do the right thing. Nobody's going to miss class. Nobody's going to be late for a meeting. Everybody's going to do exactly the right thing all the time. And nobody ever has to raise their voice. That's right, Coach. Does that happen? It's everybody's intention, but it doesn't necessarily happen that way. So sometimes you have to confront and demand that people do the right things, especially when they're not creating the right habits that are going to give them the opportunity to have a chance to be successful. But Eddie Jackson is a leader on our team. He's a very mature player. I haven't had any occasion to get on him for the last couple of years because he always responds to exactly what you say because he understands the importance of it, and he knows that we have his best interest at heart in terms of his development as a person, as a student, and as a player.
Right here.
Coach, Steve Nissom, WEAR Pensacola. Out of your quarterbacks, Cooper has the most experience. What have you seen out of him in terms of his development?
I think Cooper's a hard worker. He has the best understanding of the offense. He has the most experience, and I think that shows, at times. He's improved his ability and his consistency as a passer, which has been the most important thing. We tried to work with him to help him develop. He's a very athletic guy, and he's very bright. So all these things are going to contribute to how well he can do and how well he can win our team over, but we've been pleased with what he's been able to do so far.
Hey, Coach, Jacques Doucet, WAFB TV in Baton Rouge. You've beaten LSU 5 times in a row. Has the rivalry lost any luster, in your opinion? And a more serious follow-up, you lived in Baton Rouge for 5 years. You've always spoke highly of the city. I just want to know if you had any thoughts about what's going on there right now with all the problems.
Well, first of all, what's happened in the past relative to playing LSU, relative to the kind of players that they have, the kind of team that they have, the kind of program that they have, look, we've been fortunate to win some really, really close games. And they've been hard-fought battles, and I think any player on our team will tell you that one of the most physical games we play all year is when we play LSU. And I think we have a tremendous respect for their players, their team, and what it takes to be able to have success against that team. And we all know it's a challenge, and I don't think that at all any of the rivalry has dampened at all. The second part of the question is difficult, but I think that, what we all try to do on our teams is develop respect, trust, people getting to know each other so they have that respect and trust. And I think when you don't have that, people are afraid. And I think when people are afraid, they make poor decisions and poor judgments. And I think if we all try to come together and have a better understanding and have a better respect for everyone involved in this. Every life is important. It's important to respect police. It's important for both sides to make good judgments. But I think not understanding how this guy feels over here and how this guy feels over here is what creates this fear that has created a lot of bad judgment, I think, and maybe contributed to some of these problems. And maybe if we had, like we've created in our own organization, and I know this would be more difficult to do on a national basis, but we have the police come to practice. We have a dinner where the police come and eat with our players. We try to develop a relationship between. So there is no fear. There's a respect, a trust that's built. We have our players do police ride-around, so they develop a respect for what the police have to go through and see it from the other side. So, but I think all these things sort of develop a respect and eliminate some of the fear that maybe has created some of these bad judgments that we've had on both sides.
Okay, thank you very much.